Warning, we are not your attorneys. Please, don't take anything we say as legal advice. I'm Geoff.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Derrick.
And you are listening to the Not So Grand Jury,
which is still sponsored by Morwa PLLC.
All right, so The Fugitive is a 1993 film from director Andrew Davis, starring Harrison Ford, Tommy Lee Jones, and Celia Ward. Dr. Richard Kimble, played by Harrison Ford, is convicted of murdering his wife, played by Celia Ward. There was no forced entry to their home, and Helen Kimble seems to identify Richard as her killer on a recording of a 911 call. Richard claims the attack was perpetrated by a one-armed man whom he struggled with when he arrived home that night. Richard is tried and convicted of the murder of his wife and sentenced to death. While being transported to prison by bus, several other incarcerated people on board stage an escape. The bus crashes and is struck by a train, which subsequently derails. Kimble manages to save one of the corrections officers on the bus before the train collision and then escapes. Deputy U.S. Marshal Sam Gerard, played by Tommy Lee Jones, takes over the search for Kimble and another escapee, embarrassing the local sheriff in the process. Much drama and adventure ensues. Eventually, Dr. Kimble learns that he was the target of the one-armed man. The attempt on his life was orchestrated by his friend Dr. Nichols and was tied to a drug trial in which data had been falsified in order to get FDA approval for Provasic. Kimble had learned that Provasic had dangerous and even deadly side effects in many patients, and that threatened the bottom line of the pharmaceutical company that developed it, Devlin McGregor. What issues do we want to talk about? The big one is the U.S. Marshals.
Yeah, I was going to say, I am happy for you to hit the U.S. Marshals first. One, because I don't think we've really discussed it.
No.
Okay.
And two, because I honestly don't know a lot about the U.S. Marshals myself. So I might be learning while you talk.
All right. So let's dive into the U.S. Marshals then. First off, the U.S. Marshals were created by the Judiciary Act of 1789, the same act that established the circuit court system and the district courts. It is the longest running federal law enforcement agency in some form or another. And the law governing it is under 28 U.S.C. 561 and following sections. So what we see in the movie is Gerard comes in and has an exchange with the sheriff. Let me just play the clip here real quick.
Looks like you came a long way for nothing.
With all due respect to Sheriff Rollins, I'd like to recommend checkpoints on a 15-mile radius at I-57, I-24, and over here on Route 13 east of Chester.
Whoa, wait a minute. The prisoners are all dead, and the only thing checkpoints are going to do is get a lot of good people frantic around here and flood my office with calls.
Oh, shit, Sheriff. I'd hate to see that happen, so I guess I'll take over your investigation.
On what authority?
Governor of the state of Illinois, the United States Marshal's Office, 5th District, Northern Illinois.
All right, fine. You want jurisdiction over this mess? You got it. Okay, boys, gather around here and listen up. We're shutting it down. Wyatt Earp's here to mop up for us.
Before you go, we're going to need
Wyatt Earp.
Excuse me, Sam.
Oh, wow, gee whiz, look here. We're always fascinated when we find leg irons with no legs in them.
That last little bit isn't really relevant, but I just like the timing.
It is funny that it happens to occur at the exact time to prove you guys
It's almost
are
like
idiots.
the plot called for it.
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost.
It's almost like it's a well-paced movie. There's a lot that goes on in there. Now, the U.S. Marshals there's essentially a U.S. Marshal office for every district court in the country. And there's, 90 or so district courts in the country. I don't know the exact number. I should have looked it up, but it didn't.
It appears to be 94 based on my
94,
super quick researching.
There is no 5th District of Illinois. So let's set the stage here. Kimble is tried and convicted in Chicago on a state crime. That's really important here. So he's tried presumably in Cook County Court. Maybe he didn't live in the city itself, though it seems like he did. But this all happens generally in northern Illinois. So these marshals would presumably be from the Northern District of Illinois, not the 5th District of Northern Illinois. That's not a thing. There is actually, under Illinois' state judicial system, there is a 5th district, but it's all like the southern tip of Illinois, like St. Louis and south, basically, which wouldn't be really in play here. A couple of key points that are worth noting. Yeah, the U.S. Marshals have some authority, a great deal of authority over recapturing escaped detainees, fugitives, but federally, they have authority to seek federal fugitives. They actually have a bunch of different powers, all relating to the court system. They are empowered to enforce court orders from the district courts, the courts of appeals, the Court of International Trade, and the United States Tax Court. They protect witnesses in federal court and also federal court officers and things like that. But one of the things that they do is investigate, quote, this is a quote, investigate such fugitive matters both within and outside the United States as directed by the Attorney General. And the Attorney General's authority is over federal fugitive matters. The regulations specifically say fugitive matters, domestic and foreign, involving escaped federal prisoners, probation, parole, mandatory release, and bond default violators. This is a state crime, and it's in 1993, which is also going to be important because in 2000, a statute was passed that established a permanent system of fugitive task forces where state, federal, and local officials all coordinate together in a set system for handling these kinds of things. I presume that before 2000, there was some sort of ad hoc understanding of how this would go. But I mean,
I would just
generally,
why do I feel like it was more of a situation where like the state authorities would bring them in?
Yes,
like they wouldn't come in and take over, but like the local sheriff would be like, we've got 2 people working in this jurisdiction, and this is a relatively violent person. Please, U.S. Marshals, come in and apprehend this person.
Yeah, and maybe, hey, there's a good chance they're going to cross state lines. Right. It's Chicago, so you're not far from Canada. There's a lot of reasons you might want to involve federal officials here, but not the way it's depicted in the movie. And even now, as soon as this crash happened and anyone got word, they would probably just call in this task force, not have the sheriff just waste some time when the task force is going to be involved, regardless of what. It might take some time to decide whether or not they're all dead or not.
They didn't find one of the bodies until the next day, and he was still alive.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, amazing that guy's somehow still alive and like semi-conscious rolling to the.
That's true. Yeah. Interestingly, Nick Searcy plays the sheriff here, and he would later play the U.S. Marshal, who's Raylan Givens' boss in Justified. I'm sure we'll look at some Justified episodes down the road, but that was my headcanon is that he got shamed and then decided he was going to make it his mission to become a U.S. Marshal.
Because we don't hear from him again. He's just a bumbling idiot who lied, and then we just never talk to him ever again.
Yeah, we see some of his underlings here and there while they're doing the searches and stuff, but the sheriff himself is gone.
Gone. Yep, makes sense.
This all wouldn't go down the way it does here. However, setting aside that he is a state prisoner and not a federal prisoner, the Marshals do search for fugitives. They also have some authority to engage, to do warrantless arrests if they witness someone committing a crime, like in their presence. They still need a warrant to arrest, or importantly, to do searches of private property and things, which makes, there's a famous line in the movie. I'll go ahead and play it, but a really well-known line from Tommy Lee Jones here.
Fire truck. Listen up, ladies and gentlemen. Our fugitive has been on the run for 90 minutes. Average foot speed over uneven ground, barring injuries, 4 miles an hour. That gives us a radius of 6 miles. What I want out of each and every one of you is a hard target search of every gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, or doghouse in that area. Checkpoints go up at 15 miles. Your fugitive's name is Dr. Richard Kimble. Go get him.
Sorry. Random trivia, he says average foot speed over uneven ground for an uninjured individual. Harrison Ford famously tore his ligament in the train crash.
Interesting.
And
He's working towards ACL, yeah.
And he's purposely didn't want to get any type of surgery or anything because he wanted it to look real for the rest of the movie.
He's just like it makes sense. Oh, like really good acting. He's limping the rest of the movie. He's like, yes, he tore his ACL.
Which was a point I was going to make at some point, and then I did the research and realized that happened because I'm like, he really is limping throughout the entire movie. There are some really scenes where you're like, why are these guys all limping together? And I discovered that is why, because Harrison Ford literally has to limp the entire movie, which I think is both very good acting and also hilarious for the times.
Is it good acting if it's actually...
Hey, it's either...
Hey, do what you can. Make it real.
Yep.
There was an incident where Viggo Mortensen broke his toe.
Yes, everyone knows this. There's we're going to insert the clip on Instagram where they're watching it and the entire bar lights up and says, "Did you know Viggo Mortensen broke his toe in this?"
I'm just saying I didn't know about this thing with Harrison Ford.
Yeah, that I did. That I actually didn't know until I did more active research into it.
Yeah. So Geoff, you were saying?
Yeah, you would need to get search warrants to search, like, for a lot of what he just described, you would need to get search warrants. You can't, the marshals can't just start searching people's houses because there's a fugitive. You still need probable cause or exigent circumstances. If you see somebody go into the property, then that's one thing. However, if it's just like, we're going to search every house within a 15-mile radius of this thing or a 6-mile radius, no, you'd need to get a warrant. And speaking of warrants, as Mike, you pointed out as well, later on in the movie, we see the marshals listening in on a phone call. Let me play that real quick.
I suppose that your friend and legal counsel is for you to give yourself up. Now, tell me, where are you?
St. Louis. So he showed up not dead yet. That'd be a lesson to you boys and girls. Don't ever argue with the big dog. Big dog is always right.
Yeah, you've been right before.
All right.
Walter, this is Richard.
Richard, Jesus. Why did you run? Running only makes you look guilty.
I wasn't worried about appearances, Walter.
Tell me where you are so I can come meet you and you can turn yourself in.
I'm not going to turn myself in. I need help. I need money.
I might be crazy, but that train sounds like an L.
St. Louis doesn't have an elevated train.
How do you know it's an elevated train?
I think he's right. I live...
So this is a recording of a phone call between Richard and his attorney. There are only two ways they have this recording. Either the attorney recorded it, or they wiretapped his attorney.
They earlier say that they're going to wiretap everyone, including the attorney.
Okay. How?
We can pull the clip, but yes, as soon as they say it, I'll tell the judge about it later. Oh, that's
not how
bad.
That works.
I totally missed that line. That's interesting.
Am I imagining that happened?
I don't remember it, but I...
All right, you guys keep going. I'll figure this out.
All right, yeah. If they did, okay, I missed that line, but also that's not how that works.
No. Definitely not how that works. Also, so first off, if the lawyer recorded it, he can't do shit with it.
No.
So
not and have it be admissible, not and have it be within his ethical obligations.
Right. Now, don't get me wrong. The police would take it, or the U.S. Marshals would take it. But if it was found out, that's breaching some pretty intense privilege right there.
Yeah. And they would, so in order to wiretap anyone, you need a search warrant. For a search warrant, you need probable cause to believe that, which essentially means that you believe it is more likely than not that evidence of a crime will be uncovered through the execution of the warrant. They have no reason to expect that he will call his attorney. Even if he calls his attorney, that doesn't mean he's going to be committing a crime or providing evidence of a crime being committed while on the phone with his attorney. His attorney rightly says, I'm not going to give you money. I'm not going to engage in aiding and abetting a fugitive. You should come in. He does exactly what an attorney should do there. Now, he can't control what his client's going to do. He also doesn't know that his client is going to continue to commit crimes. He has counseled his client to turn himself in.
Also, as I understand it, and you may have done more research on this than I have, Geoff, for you to intercept a conversation that is likely going to be privileged, I'm pretty sure to get probable cause, you have to show that the lawyer is in on it. Like that they're committing something criminal in nature. Like just the fact that a fugitive may call their lawyer, or even they're likely to call their lawyer, I don't think that's enough to get probable cause.
And you would have to show, like, that is not grounds to tap the attorney's phone for whoever might call.
Generically.
He is calling in from a random phone number. So they are probably recording every client call this guy has.
That's a problem.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
And also, he's calling from a payphone in Chicago. If they are wiretapping the attorney's phone, they don't need to like try and do this. I cut it there at the end, but they do this whole like audio analysis to realize that he's in Chicago and what corner he's at. You've wiretapped the phone. You have the number that the call came from. There's no need for this weird on the spot live real-time analysis.
It was good dialogue. Like, it was fun dialogue.
Definitely, and that's why I included a little bit, because it is fun.
Would that have been the case in 93 based on the tech they had? I assume that they could identify the number.
I have to assume that even if they didn't know it right then,
they could find
call
it.
to the phone company would be like, yeah, this is the number.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And also, like we've seen recently, if you're going to be doing a search of an attorney's offices or something like that, wiretapping their phone, there would be a taint team. That is the first line of defense.
Favorite word from about 40 episodes ago.
Yeah.
What episode was that where we talked about taint teams?
Oh my God. It was.
It was probably the Lincoln lawyer. It was almost certainly the Lincoln lawyer.
It was. Yeah.
There could also be a master appointed.
Yeah. Sure. Special master.
Yeah.
Should I take over? You do more.
There was one other key point I wanted to make. I will note that Dr. Nichols confesses to the U.S. Marshals that he has engaged in aiding and abetting a fugitive, which I found interesting. He straight up tells him, yeah, I gave him money. Sure.
I gave him a couple bucks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Why not? And there's the other well-known clip, the well-known line from this movie while they're on this, there's a scene on a dam.
I didn't kill my wife! I don't care!
And the U.S. Marshals, in fact, wouldn't care. He is a fugitive. They don't care whether or not he did the crime or whether or not his conviction was valid or anything like that. They are there to recapture a fugitive. Whatever happens after that is not their concern. Mike.
What happened?
Before you go, I do want to say that was not the line in the script.
Oh, really?
There's a famous thing where Tommy Lee Jones did not like the line in the script, which is, that isn't my problem.
There's some debate about that. I've seen it go both ways. I will say, and this goes to pretty much all of our complaints so far, this movie was written as they were shooting it. They didn't know the ending until the day before they filmed it. So there's a lot of dialogue that they came up with on the spot. Tommy Lee Jones was like encouraging the other cops, get a banter going, which might explain some of the issues.
Yeah, well, so I was going to say, he didn't like that line. And everything I've read indicated that he's the one that came up with, I don't care versus that isn't my problem. I've read a lot of stuff that there was a lot of creative differences when they were writing this thing. Like, they wrote it, rewrote it, and then they still didn't like it. And then Tommy Lee Jones came in, loved the concept, but hated the writing. So they would shoot stuff, and can we make this sound more like we're actually having this conversation and not like we're literally reading something that's written on the page? Which
one of the documents I saw said that 75% of the dialogue was rewritten as they were doing it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Part of me hopes there's an outtake somewhere, because it's Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford, that Tommy Lee Jones responded in one take with "I know." To just because Harrison Ford responded to "I love you" with "I know" off the cuff in Star Wars, off the cuff, but questionable. But I can. That thought makes me feel smart.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But anyway, that's my whole point, was that like it is probably the most iconic line in the film, and it wasn't even in the script, which I always love. Yep. All right. To you, Mike.
The movie ends. We know that he didn't commit the murder. How does he get off from this murder? He was convicted. What happens next?
That's an excellent question.
A couple possible routes for this.
Detective Kelly, do you believe that Kimble is armed and dangerous?
I believe he's dangerous.
Detective Kelly, he's taking all these chances coming back to Chicago. Do you now feel that perhaps he might be innocent, that there may be a one-armed man out there?
He was convicted in a court of law. He's guilty.
What are you going to do next?
Okay, so couple actions that he could do, and we're not really sure where he left off after he's convicted. We don't know if they initiated an appeal or what happened after that, but he can file an appeal. It would be difficult for him to get new evidence in an appeal. Like, traditionally, when you file a direct appeal, you're appealing something that happened in court, but with the evidence in front of you. There are some ways around that. In theory, they could remand the trial back down. They could do a couple other things. Maybe the prosecutors would just allow it in. Another option would be post-conviction relief, which is more commonly how you see new evidence come in. That's usually what happens in a normal trial. If DNA evidence later shows they're innocent, there are laws in pretty much every jurisdiction allowing post-conviction relief where the convicted party can show, like, no, here's DNA evidence showing it wasn't me, it was somebody else.
Also, I'll jump in very briefly, Mike, just to note that because this is a death penalty inmate, there's a laundry list of things he can do before he's ever put to death, right? Yeah. So you've got, oh, sorry, go for it, Geoff.
No.
So what I was going to say is, like, he's got what Mike already mentioned, the direct appeal, which is basically automatic. Like, I think they're basically automatically appealed, right? Like, anytime.
It is actually automatic.
Right. So it's almost a mandatory appeal where the highest court reviews everything, right? And it's de novo. They review the whole thing and basically make sure that there's nothing wrong. Some parts are not necessarily de novo. It depends on the state, I think. But, like, for the most part, they take a look at everything and make sure it's not screwed. So that's
for the listener, de novo means that they are taking fresh, brand new look at the case. They're not accepting anything as true or anything like that. It is a completely new examination of the case. That's what de novo means.
Yeah, sorry. Let's for the non-lawyer listener, let's talk about the sort of levels of review when an appellate court reviews. I'll do it very briefly because I know we have a lot to talk about. So, something happens at the trial court, whether it is a final decision, like a jury verdict, or it's a decision by the court to dismiss a case or to rule in one party's favor, you typically have a ability to, in fact, a right, if not a mandatory right, to appeal to a higher court who can review it. Depending upon the sort of what decision it is in the previous decisions from the courts, you either get what they call a de novo review, which Geoff just mentioned. It's basically Latin for anew or from the beginning, meaning you do a full review of it. Or there might be like abuse of discretion, which is more of a deferential review where they defer to the trial court's decision unless it's unreasonable, arbitrary, something along those lines. So in that case, and this especially is for evidentiary rulings, things along that nature, they tend to give the trial court a lot of discretion and make sure they acted within the bounds of reason. Here,
and also
go for it, Geoff.
It's important to note that they can review parts of the case de novo and parts by another standard. In many cases, they take essentially the factual findings of the court as true, unless there's clear error. But the legal conclusions, they'll review de novo because they're the appellate court and they're going to trust the factual findings of the lower court that actually saw the witnesses. But the legal conclusions, they're not going to particularly give any deference to the trial court judge. Yeah. So there can be different standards applying in the same case. It can get complicated.
Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. And to go back to what a sort of death penalty inmate can do, so they've done the direct appeal. Let's say they go through the direct appeal and it all gets rejected. Then they have what Mike also mentioned, the sort of state post-conviction relief proceedings, where they basically challenge it based on evidence that that can be outside the record. Mike, that sort of...
So post-conviction, it varies by state. I have the standard up here for Illinois. But pretty much it's... Post-conviction relief in Illinois allows individuals incarcerated under legal restraint to challenge their conviction or sentence due to substantial constitutional violations, such as ineffective counsel, coerced pleas, or in this case, newly discovered evidence. Petitions are generally filed within 3 years of conviction or within 6 months of denied appeal. Key aspects of the Illinois PCR, the act allows individuals to challenge convictions based on violations of constitutional rights, requirement the petitioner must be imprisoned or facing a restraint of liberty. Grounds for relief I already went over. So in this case, it would clearly come in just because of new evidence.
And there could have been other things, and we obviously don't see much of what happens at the trial. I'll talk in a second about what some of the silly things that happened at the very brief parts of the trial we see. But there could have been like Brady violations where the prosecution didn't turn over evidence. There could have been, like you mentioned, ineffective assistance of counsel, which, by the way, I don't know who his lawyer is, but he didn't really do all that much.
Yeah, we don't see what he did, but there's definitely things that he probably could have done. We don't see a ton of the trial, but there are things that are said as proof. We hear details of the cops discussing this as if it's open and closed. Like his gun, his fingerprints were on the gun that he owns. His fingerprints were on the lamp that he owns
in his house.
Probably, yeah. If that got presented at trial, I imagine somebody would have made a stink about it.
I will say the 911 call is pretty damning.
Oh, yeah.
In the movie, you understand why she says what she says.
Yes, but like in real life, if you heard that, you're like,
Yeah.
but you're gonna go to jail for a long time, friend.
Your Honor, we would ask to play Helen Kimble's 911 emergency call, previously identified by Chicago Police Department dispatcher.
Emergency 911.
Please help me.
What seems to be the problem, ma'am?
He's here still in the house.
Did I hear you right? Someone's in your house?
He's trying to kill me.
Would you repeat that, please? Ma'am?
He's trying to kill me.
Ma'am? Ma'am, is your attacker still in the house? Ma'am?
Richard.
Ma'am?
Richard. He's trying to kill me.
So yes, that's bad.
Oh
my God, could you get your...
The Cinco de Mayo operator.
Geoff.
The 911 operator sucks. Can I just say that?
Correct. So the 911 operator, correct, sucks, yes.
I'm sorry, can you say more clearly that someone is in your house trying to kill? That's what I thought I heard, but let me just...
So yes, 911 operator, not great. Step one. What they do at trial, the whole, Your Honor, we would ask to play Helen Kimble's 911 emergency call, previously identified by Chicago Police Department dispatcher. I think they'd play it when it was identified earlier in the trial. That'd be a little weird if they didn't play it then and waited to play it later.
They would have had to for them to identify it.
Correct. So either they've already heard it, so they don't need to play it again, or they didn't play it then, which would make no sense. Like, you couldn't play it now. Like, there's just no... that part, and again, I can get into other issues of the trial. That part's dumb.
Is it clear at that point, is she giving her closing statement or her closing argument, or is
unclear
she questioning someone?
Unclear. We have... because she is doing it from counsel table, I think.
Yeah. And if she's questioning another witness and I'm Kimble's attorney, I'd say, look, this is unduly prejudicial. We have heard it once already. You can ask the witness about
good
it.
objection.
But if it's her closing argument, what you do there is recapitulate a lot of the evidence.
But if that's the case, she does it in the dumbest possible way. You don't ask the judge to do that. You would just do it. You would look at the jury in the face and be like, as you heard, and I am going to play it again for you, this is what she said when she was dying. You don't ask the judge for permission to do that. That's not how that works. So it doesn't make sense anyway. But I will say, the one thing they do get right is that would 100% come in at trial. So
it would be hard to get that.
Yeah, we've talked briefly on this podcast about hearsay, where you are offering something for the truth of the matter asserted that is not from not said by the person testifying. And so obviously, when Helen Kimble has died, you can't testify to the authenticity of it. Mm-hmm. One of the exceptions to hearsay is a dying declaration, which obviously it means that someone is dying and they give a declaration that is somehow either recorded or heard. So this could include phone calls, voicemails, and they are generally allowed into evidence. And the specific Illinois requirements is there's 3 elements. The statement has to relate to the cause or circumstances of the homicide. The declarant, in other words, the person dying, believes the death is impending and almost certain to imminently follow. Here we know that she died within about 5 minutes of her attack, so obviously that makes sense. And the declarant is mentally capable of giving an accurate statement regarding the cause or circumstances of the homicide. It's hard to prove that. I'm not really sure how you prove it here, but I can tell you that, like, when she says a name, it's going to be hard to be like, she was crazy, Your Honor. Yeah. Now, again, as we see in the film, we understand why she says it, because she hears him coming, probably, and says...
Yeah, she may even see him coming up the stairs.
Right. She either hears him or sees him or whatever, and sees him and says, he's trying to kill me, that she's talking to Richard, not saying Richard. But that would sound very bad in trial. I will say that, from what I can tell, is the only like really bad evidence, because they make it seem like the bad evidence is the gun. It's his gun. He's going to have his fingerprints on it. It's, again, the lamp. That doesn't make any sense. So really the two bits of evidence are there's no break-in and her voicemail, or the phone call, not the voicemail. That was not a thing. Phone call. So I could see a scenario where he's convicted. We don't see much of the trial, but I can tell you that there's a couple things that happen. I might as well just get into it. We can figure out if we move it somewhere else. There's a couple things of the trial that sort of confuse me. One is that the detectives are there for the opening statement and then testify like a half a second later. That normally wouldn't happen. Like, they would typically be kept outside the courtroom before they actually testified. It is a little interesting how they decided to do it, where they show the trial, never show the jury verdict, and go straight to what the judge's sentencing is. Which is a little interesting.
The sentencing presumes he was found guilty.
I agree.
I don't know that we need to see.
But listen, I will be honest, if I am not a lawyer, would you have known those were two different parts of the trial?
Maybe not.
And like, you couldn't spend 5 seconds just having the foreman, what they always do, he's found guilty, and just show his reaction to being found guilty and then go to the sentencing part. Like, it was a little weird that they show the trial and then they show what the death penalty verdict, which is not the verdict. That's actually that's the sentencing, which would have been a completely different part and would have happened a month or two later.
Yeah, and it's interesting that now that you mention it, I was going to say economy of storytelling. We don't need to both hear that he's guilty and hear that he's being sentenced to death. At the same time, it never matters that he's receiving the death penalty. That's never relevant. So it could have just been the jury verdict.
Yeah.
So that is interesting. Go ahead.
And I do know, like, I read somewhere that there was some disagreements on whether he was going to be given life or death penalty, but it doesn't freaking matter for the story, from what I can tell.
No. Whether or not he's on death row doesn't matter to the U.S. Marshals, or it gives him more reason to want to not stick around after the train crash.
Fair enough.
But it's not like you need a huge justification. He's been falsely convicted of killing his wife. He's not going to want to stick around.
No.
I get that.
Regardless of whether it's life imprisonment or he's got the death penalty, which is still going to take anywhere from 10 to 20 years ever.
Yeah. I'll note, since we've mentioned the death penalty a few times, in 1993 in Illinois, there was still the death penalty. That was the last execution in Illinois was 1999, and they eliminated it as a punishment in, I want to say 2011.
Yep.
I wrote it down.
It was 2011.
So yeah, there was the death penalty at the time. This would have been as the result of a bifurcated trial, a conviction, and then a new trial to decide whether or not the death penalty applies. But sorry. Continue.
Yeah, those were the couple things that I noted from we only see like about 3. Well, there's also 1 or 2 things that I would have objected to in the opening statement, but we can get into we could spend a entire episode on, is it worth objecting to your opposing counsel's opening or closing statement? Because it's an area where you can object. It also makes you look bad, and especially in front of a jury.
Yeah, it depends on how egregious the thing is, really.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything they did was totally egregious, although like it was a little interesting when the prosecutor basically says, you're going to hear from her from the grave. And I was like, where the hell is he going from this? And then that's when you hear they get to the phone call. And I'm like, okay, that makes some sense, but it's still, anyway, it was a little weird that the way they said it. Regardless,
I thought it was fine. That didn't bother me that little bit.
No, I think it's okay. But I remember when it first came in, I would have, if I was the other side, I'd be like, "What's going on here?" But again, I don't think it would have been objectionable.
Jumping back real quick, can we jump back just to how does he get clear first, or do you have other things you want to say?
No, we can do that, and then I can go back to the custodial interrogation because I'd like to talk about that briefly.
Yeah. So there's a couple other elements for how he would get cleared. We presume in this case, the state is okay with clearing his name, that they probably don't put up too much of a fight once they have, hopefully, a decent case against the other parties.
So let's talk about that. Because I know you've mentioned how he might want to get cleared.
Yep.
Okay.
So
the movie,
I'm thinking he's going to file a petition to vacate the conviction.
For sure. So the movie is ending with basically the U.S. Marshals now in the boat of he didn't do it, right?
Yes.
So he's got one set of federal authorities who, again, are not state authorities, who are on his side. So what the hell happens? Does he just appeal and get Gerard to show up and explain everything that happens? Or, and again, we're also talking about who theoretically is a very good lawyer who, now, this I was about to say, he's got a lot of money, but he also, so he's a known surgeon. He can't, regardless of the amount of money his wife has, I assume he's made some decent money. Right.
I assume so also. I assume he also spent a lot of money defending himself in the initial trial.
Fair enough. Because I was about to say he also has all of his wife's money. That insurance policy wouldn't pay out if he was found to have killed her.
No, not until that's cleared, which is part of the reason he needs to file
is another reason
petition to clear the conviction. He needs to file a petition to clear the conviction. For the insurance money, he needs to do it probably to practice medicine ever again, because if you're convicted of murder, there's probably some ethical implications. Some board is going to say no to your title.
Really briefly, I did research into this. Illinois statutes 225 ILC 6020.
Yep.
Know it by heart.
No, just like I got it in my notes. A medical license, the department may revoke the license or permit of any person issued under this act upon the following grounds, one of which a plea of guilty or nolo contendere, a finding of guilt, a jury verdict, or entry of judgment, blah, 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 under laws of any jurisdiction in the United States of any crime that is a felony. They can revoke your medical license. Now, I don't know, maybe they haven't gotten around to it yet. It's not clear exactly how much time has passed.
From the conviction till him breaking out. So from the period of time of him breaking out till the end of the movie is pretty short.
Oh, yeah. But the trial itself.
From the conviction till, that's... And they probably wouldn't do anything to his license until he'd been convicted.
But that goes to the bifurcated trial. You'd have first the trial and then the guilt and the sentencing. That would have a whole other period. Yeah.
Yep. Fair point.
Hi, everyone. Derrick here with a brief message. The Not So Grand Jury is sponsored by my law firm, Morwa PLLC. One of Morwa PLLC's many practice areas is business law. If you are a business owner or someone who is thinking of starting up a new or side business, you need a legal team who can efficiently provide you legal counsel, keeping you and your business away from potential legal issues, and if necessary, representing you in any disputes that do arise. We pride ourselves on being cost efficient while also getting to know our clients. If you want less stress and more support, you need more law. If you would like to set up a free consult, please click on the link in the show notes, visit our website, www.mooreatty.com, that's mooreatty.com, or email us at contact@mooreatty.com. And now, back to the show.
Derrick, do you want to talk more about what happens afterwards?
I was going to say, so he's going to appeal, if he hasn't already, right? Like, his lawyer could be already working on the appeal for all the hell we know, right?
Yeah.
So
we hope there's some evidence that the attorney might have been an idiot. So honestly, a good grounds for the PCR might be ineffective assistance to counsel.
Apparently. Yeah. But anyway, so he's applied, he's done the appeal. He's got the U.S. Marshals who are on his side. I assume he would work with them, or his lawyer would work with them. Now, also, they take off his handcuffs, and I don't know where the hell they're driving him to, by the way. That's a great question.
I didn't grab that clip because there's really not great audio.
But the short version is he gets in the car, and then Gerard takes off his handcuffs, gives him an ice pack, and basically says, I know you didn't do it. And I didn't think you cared. Yeah. Don't tell anybody. Blah, blah, blah. The question is, where do they go? Now, in real life, they go right back to the goddamn jail.
Yeah, and frankly, you probably want to be careful about that because Chicago PD still thinks that he killed another cop.
So
my guess is they bring him to the U.S. Marshal's office.
That's
and detain him there.
Yeah, maybe the better place for it.
And then there becomes a little bit of a battle of what they do with him because
does he go back?
The state wants him back because he's a fugitive, but they've now just arrested 2 other people in some version of connection with this. Right. Yep. Sykes could have been because he shot the cop, but they also are not sure. I'm not sure if at that point they've realized that.
Can I just note he shoots the cop being played by the janitor from Scrubs.
Our boy the janitor.
in the exchange on the train where he is shot, Kimble, who is a doctor who earlier in the movie posed as a janitor, is talking to a janitor who posed as a doctor.
It's great.
I just found that very funny in retrospect.
It's great. I will also note, and this is actually, we may throw this for a sidebar, so I will note this as something we might want to get rid of. One of my friends listened to our last episode on Scrubs. Geoff, you had made, in the first time in the history of me knowing you, a sports reference. You referenced Rookie of the Year. Which he's in, but we didn't acknowledge it.
Oh, he's in Rookie of the Year?
He is. He
played the janitor?
He played.
I haven't seen that movie since I was 10. So
little kid, yeah.
He plays one of the players on the opposing team.
The janitor.
Really?
That's funny.
So
just had a career as a bit actor until Scrubs.
So
he was getting work.
Yep. So he had supporting roles in Rookie of the Year. He also, his actually film debut was Major League. But what's funny is that we were sitting there trying to think of other things he had done. You, of all of us, referenced a movie that he was in earlier in the episode and we didn't acknowledge it, which
that's funny.
I love the fact he brought that to my attention because I said to him, we were just so happy that Geoff picked a sports movie. Period. We didn't think to go any further.
No,
it's that and Field of Dreams. Those are the two I can reference.
Okay.
So
I haven't seen a sports movie since 1990.
I'm super proud of you, Geoff. Just the fact that you got Rookie of the Year. But I found that kind of funny. But yeah, so I'm honestly not sure what happens next. Like, we could do the research on this all we wanted. It would just it would come down to how much would the state play ball and be like.
So it's how much does the state play ball, but also presumably. All right, so the U.S. Marshal, Tommy Lee Jones, presumably the rest of the U.S. Marshals believes not only is Kimble innocent, but this other guy had a conspiracy had some kind of corporate fraud going on, killed some other people, did a bunch of other things. It's a little bit difficult to prove some of those things, especially when you already have one of the murders you're saying he committed, you already have a conviction on. So who's the evil doctor's name again?
Nichols.
Presumably Nichols has some real defenses and is not going to come clean right away. So that complicates A, Kimble getting off, and B, what does the state want to do going forward?
And what does the state want to do going forward is complicated by the number of crimes that Kimble commits in trying to prove his innocence.
Yeah.
I made a little list here of...
Before we get to that, I guess the state's best opportunity is to get one of Nichols or the other guy to flip on each other. And that's probably the fastest way through. You hope that one of them breaks.
Yeah.
Also, I guess Nichols you could probably get for trying to kill the one cop.
Mike, you did research on this very recently, and I have not. My recollection is that one of the issues when you're trying to prove actual innocence as a grounds for post-conviction relief is the evidence can't have been available at the time.
Yes, for some reason it was not available. So I have that in the notes somewhere.
And because
it's usually just newly discovered evidence.
Okay.
But there's two countervailing ways that you get it. It's ineffective assistance to counsel. Either your counsel sucks so much they didn't bother to check for this evidence, or the evidence wasn't known to exist because it's DNA evidence, and in 1993 we weren't testing for DNA evidence.
Or I guess the third possibility, which is a Brady violation where the prosecution had it but didn't give it over or something like that.
Sure.
So it's really a bunch of different ways that the defense couldn't have used it. And it's ideally that covers all possibilities, but there's probably some other way that it could have. You couldn't get in.
Because thinking back on this, like all the evidence that he uncovers is the fact that there was a one-armed man employed by Devlin McGregor as their head of security, who a call was placed to him from Kimble's car earlier that day. That's really interesting, and I presume that like someone would have to check Kimble's alibi of being in surgery at the time that the attack started, or on his way back from surgery, or something like that.
There's a bunch of defenses that presumably his defense attorney missed. Like, how would somebody have gotten access to the property without forcing it? Were there keys in the car, maybe?
Right. Nichols borrowed my car earlier that day.
Maybe this is a good thread to chase down. And we don't see a lot of what the defense attorney does at the trial. So maybe he raised all of these and somehow they lost or something. I don't know.
We don't see him do jack shit.
literally nothing.
He only speaks when Kimble calls him after escaping.
Right.
Yeah.
There is a couple podcasts that I was listening to that would talk about like issues with the Fugitive, and they all say if this dude is a freaking renowned surgeon who's got money, that's not the guy.
It just that's probably the right point. It's just we don't see what happens at the trial to know. But I assume that's
when he calls his lawyer. Now, by the way, if you call your lawyer, it's probably your personal lawyer.
Yeah,
he probably shouldn't be representing him in the murder trial because he says you're my legal counsel. You know, I don't think you have.
He says as your friend and legal counsel.
Correct, guys. I don't care if any of you are criminal lawyers. If I get not legal advice, but I'm saying it. If someone accuses me of murder, I ain't contacting you idiots to represent me. Now,
I wouldn't represent you in a criminal trial.
Right. Now, I might want your advice behind the scenes, but you're not going to be my main. I'm going to hire the best I can possibly find.
If it was like, hey, I just need somebody for my arraignment, and then I'm going to I'll show up and be not guilty, then sit the fuck down.
Yes, and then tell me to shut up. That's what you're going to do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, like thinking about it a little bit more, it sounds like it was his personal lawyer. That's not the guy to represent you in a murder trial.
No.
So,
no.
Anyway.
That's probably his like medical malpractice attorney that he's a surgeon. He's had a medical malpractice attorney for a while.
Well, shoot, it could be his business lawyer because a lot of doctors have their own consult. It could have just been like, it could be the me.
He handled the purchase of his condo or something. Who the hell knows?
Like it could, so it's probably not the right guy. And like it is brought up on a lot of different sort of commentaries to this. That's not the guy he would have as his defense lawyer. That doesn't seem correct.
That being said, if you're going to call somebody and need help, I probably would call my personal friend who's an attorney.
Fair enough. But then he finds the right guy.
Yeah. This is your fixer who connects you with. Really, you should still be talking to probably your criminal defense attorney from the trial. It's probably still the best counsel.
Yes, I know. I'm just saying from his perspective, whose number do I know?
Fair enough.
So assuming they're able to file a petition to vacate the conviction, the court can have an order setting aside the sentence, and hopefully the indictment can be dismissed. After that, he would probably file a petition for certificate of innocence. And the significance of that is if you have, there's the possibility for statutory compensation for him. In Illinois, statute provides compensation based on the number of years someone is wrongfully incarcerated. So for him, it's some nominal period of time, but you need to have either been pardoned or have the certificate of innocence.
Okay.
So that's the importance of that. He could actually get a couple less than 5 years. You can get up to today, which is really absolutely nothing.
Wow.
But
that is
there's an extra zero there. It's supposed to be 83,000. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
still nothing for 5 years or whatever. But I will say he probably was not incarcerated for 5 years. He probably we're guessing weeks to months or something. So in that case, he's actually doing okay.
At the most, the length of the trial, which let's say at the outside a year.
Like if you got that full amount, okay, that probably covers your legal expenses.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Fair. I just thought that was like an interesting detail. In theory, he could sue the state for malicious prosecution or Brady violations if we saw any, but I didn't see anything. No. Like it doesn't. Whatever is wrong with the legal errors here, doesn't seem to be on the state side.
Yeah, other than they really jump to conclusions. It doesn't seem.
But there's actually not. No. His skin is under her fingernails. It's like, actually, that's like compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the 911 call.
Yeah.
And they did
actually
investigation.
They did actually question the one-armed man. It wasn't like they didn't do anything. He had alibis.
That's a good point. They do mention that someone did talk to him. So someone talked to him, which means that they must have known that there was a call from his phone to Sykes. Like, how do they get to Sykes unless they're questioning every one-armed man in Chicago?
Yeah.
What? Interesting.
He said he had an alibi.
About that line.
Yeah.
But how did they get to him without doing that investigation?
They were investigating one-armed men. One-armed men who roughly match that description. By the way, there's a couple. They do this bit twice where they're like describing who they're looking for exactly to the person. So it's like once to Harrison Ford and once to the one-armed man. And I just like watching it the first time when when they're describing Harrison Ford to Harrison Ford. Every time I look in the mirror.
Except
what if that was the cop right then was like, "Hey, it's you." Right. End movie. That's the end.
End movie. Back in jail. Nothing changes.
One thing I want to note that one thing that might have the state a little pissed off at Kimble, and like I mentioned a bit ago, is he commits at least 4 crimes over the course of this. He steals an ambulance. Escape itself is a crime. He steals an ambulance. He engages in either criminal trespass to a residence or burglary, depending on whether or not he intended to steal something. And he did take photos from Sykes's brownstone or row home or whatever. And he also engaged in the unauthorized practice of medicine. That's another one. So, presuming that his license was revoked at some point after.
How familiar are you guys with the original Fugitive movie? TV show, sorry.
Not at all.
I've never seen a bit of it unless someone was referencing this, watching a YouTube video about this, and they're showing it. It was wildly popular. The last episode had 78 million viewers. It was the fucking Super Bowl.
You got to remember that this was back when there were 3 channels.
Yeah, I understand that, but like the shows that I think of from that era are like I Love Lucy. This is like a little bit later in time and still somehow massively popular. It was that final episode was the most popular episode of television until MASH.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never seen it.
The reason I mention it is apparently there's a lot of most of the episodes are him like helping somebody out, usually in a medical setting, and then disappearing and not being able to prove his innocence.
Okay. Do you know anything about the plot other than he was apparently also a doctor?
I know that the train is also in the original. That train bit is
really interesting.
Probably more poorly executed, but
there's a Corridor Crew. It's a YouTube channel that does special analysis of special effects, and they have an interesting video on how that whole train wreck was done. Train wreck, not that it's a bad thing. No. How that whole scene in which a train crashes was done, and it's really interesting.
I will try, and I think I have the pictures of the actual. Hang on one second. Let me see if I can post these. That they did crash a real train.
Yeah, that was the thing where they crashed. There was no CGI. It was not miniatures. It was a real train.
They crashed a real train, and apparently it sucks. So they did use miniatures.
Well, but they used miniatures for certain parts of it, but I guess a lot of it were still the sort of main crashing of said train.
But you can go visit the site where they have where the train is still there. And people do that. And
the train is still there.
They crash into do you know how much the train weighs?
Okay. Yeah. I guess I just assumed that this was like a working track, but maybe not. Okay.
All right. The link at the very bottom of the document. Yeah. So that's the remnants of it. You can go visit it today. I think it's in North Carolina.
Okay.
Also, a less common trope now, but for a while, and you still see it in some movies, a person running away from an object behind them, where if they run slightly to the side, they'd be fine.
Oh, no. I will say it looked to be a pretty steep grade there. He may not have wanted to run directly down.
Yeah, fair. But it's just like slightly off, and he would have been completely out of the way. It's the Alien movie Prometheus, where the same thing happens.
Yeah, so that one's really absurd.
A little to the right, you'd be like, oh yeah, look at that thing falling next to me.
It's true. Mike, add it to the list of tropes.
I feel like it's less common in our movies. Until we do Prometheus and all of the legal implications of Prometheus.
Yeah. We laugh, but we're doing Star Trek soon.
Oh.
Didn't even know that. So, fun fact.
Yeah. I have suggested that we do the new Alien TV show.
I have yet to watch any of that.
It's fine.
Another interesting note, the director of this movie, Andrew Davis, also directed Steven Seagal in Above the Law, so that's probably a future episode.
And I think Tommy Lee Jones is also in that.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah. I think that's when he first worked.
The one thing
I don't think I've seen a Steven Seagal movie.
Oh, man. Your childhood was really deprived.
But you're also fine, by the way.
Disagree.
I know you could have had more fun when you were younger, but honestly, you didn't miss much of anything.
Oh, I guess so. Let me cover one other thing. The whole plot centers around faked evidence in the course of a drug trial to try and get FDA approval for Provasic. And I did a little bit of digging into how drug trials work and what kinds of things might go wrong in a drug trial. And full disclosure, my father is a PharmD, a doctor of pharmacy, so I did talk to him a little bit about this. But I just want to point to a couple of things. It is required that investigators keep very detailed files on their drug trials, including patients and things like that. There was recently a conviction of an individual from Florida in 2021. He was convicted of conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud. He had conspired with several other people to falsify data in their medical records during a drug trial. Essentially, they created a bunch of fictitious patients in order to get more money for the drug trial through whatever mechanism they had for that. And in that instance, he was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison and 3 years of supervised release. And in that case, they were not necessarily endangering anyone's health. The conspiracy here seems to have been attempting to hide some very severe side effects for a number of patients that would probably have resulted in the maximum sentence for these kinds of things is 20 years. So Nichols and the others who participated in this, presumably Lentz, it's unclear. I presume that Lentz knew what was going on, but Nichols had him killed for some reason. Who knows? But the falsifying of the medical records for a drug trial is a serious thing, and they could easily face real time in prison. Not that any amount of time isn't real time, but
I was about to say,
unlike for the murder, which they wouldn't face any real.
this
in addition, yeah,
that could lead Nichols to be the one that flips. To be like, yeah, I'm
potentially,
like, I'm facing everything under the sun.
To be fair, they're all facing a lot of jail time.
Fair enough.
Like, the one-armed man might be like, it might be easier to get him to flip and say, I only did these things because I was directed to.
He was
yada.
He was effectively murder for hire, not all other shit.
The question for me is, was it Nichols that orchestrated it, or was he acting at the behest of Devlin McGregor?
Yeah,
because Nichols works for the hospital, and he's giving a speech toward the end. That is at the end when he's talking about falsifying records. But earlier in Nichols's talk, he talks about the hospital's partnership with Devlin McGregor in doing this trial. So it's not clear how much the corporation knew about the falsification of records, whether it was done at their direction or not. So I bring that up because what I was going to say is, who is there for Nichols to turn on? He can't flip on Sykes. Sykes is the lower guy on the totem pole. But if Devlin McGregor was behind it, then there's plenty of people he could flip on.
Yeah. Do we have any other big points we want to go over?
Well, I was about to say, I was going to jump right onto that and just say, and I'm not going to get into it too much, but if in fact someone at Devlin McGregor was the one that directed Nichols to do it, we have a RICO case.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yay. And RICO's not confusing at all, and I can totally explain that in a matter of seconds.
So 15 seconds, go.
I'm going to need at least a minute, but I can do it in about. I can do a very brief version in a minute. Okay. So, back in 1970, as a way to dismantle the mafia, the RICO Act, which is the longer version, is the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, basically was like a way to get organized crime and prosecute not just the person who did the murder or not just the person who was doing the criminal acts. It was to get the entire organization known as the enterprise. So it was a way to prosecute both legal and illegal enterprises. Now, RICO has become a whole thing. And in fact, I am currently a lawyer representing a plaintiff in a RICO action. In fact, soon to be more RICO actions. This has nothing to do with what I'm involved in. Mine involves copyright infringement, so it's a very different version of RICO. But
interesting.
The original intent of RICO was specifically designed to target the mafia and like hierarchical criminal organizations. It was made it a crime to participate in quote unquote an enterprise through a quote unquote pattern of racketeering activity, which is defined as 2 or more related crimes. Murder, extortion, wire fraud were the big ones early on within a 10-year period. And RICO has expanded into nonsense. And I will simply just say, over time, since the 70s, both courts as well as the legislatures have broadened the definition of enterprise to include legitimate businesses, corrupt police departments, street gangs, and really is a way nowadays for plaintiffs to use it as a sword against defendants, because you are entitled to additional damages. And honestly, if you're found to be to have violated something under the RICO statute, it just looks very bad for you. It makes it seem like that you have done the equivalent to what the mafia did, which was have this sort of illegal enterprise that has led to certain illegal actions.
Also, the threat of it sometimes gets people to flip because it is going to be such a long, drawn-out litigation that, if you can get someone to plead to a much lower act, you can get out sooner. They're usually likely to do that.
Correct. And it leads to guilt by association. If you're even part of that organization, you're tainted from it.
Sure.
There are legitimate uses of RICO, even in the sort of expanded version, especially for situations where companies, even completely legitimate companies, are allowing bad things to happen without them doing anything. So RICO has now started to be used for instance, tons of copyright infringement on websites where the owner of the website just says, well, it's not me, it's the sellers on the website. And it's if you are actively encouraging them to do it, giving them the tools to do it, sticking your head in the sand and claiming it's not my fault, what are people who are having their IP infringed supposed to do? Go after every different individual person who is selling one at a time when thousands are being sold on your website? Someone's got to be at fault. So I do think there are good uses of RICO, especially in a situation where someone is putting other people in a good state to commit illegal crimes. I can see, it's a different thing. It's definitely not what the original intent of it was, but RICO can be used for the right situation. Sometimes, however, it's used for garden variety, and I hate this, it's weird to say this, garden variety fraud. And so it's someone has misrepresented something and the plaintiff has been damaged by it, but then they try to bring in the entire company when it was just one person who did something inappropriate, and they try to turn it into something much broader. That's what RICO is being overused, and it's overbroad. Here, if in fact someone at Devlin McGregor, a higher up, whoever it was, encouraged/told Nichols to do this, that is a good example of the RICO, of a use of RICO, because now you have a conspiracy, you have a literal enterprise. They did a RICO. You have an enterprise who is committing at least one crime, if not multiple crimes. So, yeah, because they probably killed what's his face, Lentz.
That seems very heavily implied. Yeah.
So we have two crimes. We have what would have been the attempted murder on Kimble, which led to the actual murder of his wife, and then the murder of Lentz. That is the two actions that would get you to a RICO racketeering.
And the fraud, right?
Yeah.
In addition to the fraud and everything else. Yeah. So
we should do a deep dive into RICO in connection with The Dark Knight.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
Okay.
We could spend forever on that. But yes, and then the other thing I want to get into briefly, and honestly, this could become a sidebar, so I'm just going to say it, but if we want to pull it out, we might pull it out. I got really into the sort of interrogation that happens at the start of the film, where, and again, I don't think it would have been a big deal at the trial. It could have been, but we never see it. We never see it. They never play the recording of it. It doesn't seem like the detectives testify to it, but I was very curious about the interrogation that happened right after his wife's murder. It appears he voluntarily goes with the cops in a squad car down to the police station. He is put in what looks like an interrogation room or office of some sort with two cops, with about 20 cops watching him.
I pulled some of the audio if you want me to play
Go for it. Play it.
Those scratches on your neck, Doc, did the one-armed guy do that?
Helen scratched me when I was trying to move her.
Was that before or after you had the fight with the one-armed guy?
I told you.
Do you own a gun, Doc? Do you own a gun?
Yes, we have a gun in the house.
Is it registered your name?
Yes.
Where do you usually keep that gun?
It's
The one that you own.
It's in Helen's table. Bedside table.
You keep a large amount of jewelry in the house?
Hello. His fingerprints are all over the lamp, the gun, and the bullets. And the good doctor's skin is under her fingernails.
Your wife, she's got the money in the family, doesn't she?
Helen comes from a wealthy family. Yes.
Is she insured?
Yes, she is.
And it goes on.
It goes on. I think first off, I did a little background into it, and it turns out that, again, this goes back to the whole, like, the script was written as they were filming it. Harrison Ford was not aware of the questions that are going to be asked of him during the filming of the movie.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they purposely did not tell him what the questions were going to be so that his reactions were going to be a little bit more personal, which is interesting because I actually did think that it seemed a little more real in a way it didn't seem like that's not what they would have written. I tend to think of this stuff when I watch our films now. I'm like, that's not what would have been written. Well, it's true. It wasn't written. They had a list of questions for the cops to ask him, and he was not aware of what was going to be asked, which I thought was interesting.
That's fascinating.
Right.
This is another way they can save money on having to write it ahead of time.
Also true. You just get someone like Harrison Ford and be like, go act.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, at no time do we see him Mirandized.
Nope.
Which is interesting. And we've talked about this on the podcast before. And again, I don't think this ends up being like what would have been like a huge deal at trial where they would have excluded evidence. But if he was not properly Mirandized, they could not use certain aspects of what they call a custodial interrogation if he was not properly Mirandized. Now, Miranda was what, 70s, 60s, something like that?
62?
Something like that. Miranda was obviously in effect in the 90s, so that's not a concern. That was definitely a concern. Right, maybe not in the original TV show, but certainly for the movie it was. And the question is, so clearly he voluntarily agrees to be brought in, but as you see through the questioning, it becomes very, shall we say, direct at some point. And it's more about, originally it's about like just asking questions factually based. And then it becomes more questions of, we think you did it, Dr. Kimble. And he starts getting into it. So,
1966, by the way.
There we go. The question would be, let's assume that it was voluntary at first. So therefore it's called a non-custodial interview, which means he would be allowed to leave and he would not have to be Mirandized. When did it become custodial? And I'm going to very briefly get into the law on this, and this is certainly not by any stretch of the imagination a sort of full landscape of the law, but it briefly gets into it. So the relevant inquiry is what a reasonable person in his position would have understood in this situation. And in other words, would they have felt free to terminate the interrogation and disengage from it at any time? This sort of all started from a Supreme Court case in 1977, Oregon versus, I believe it's Mathiasen. If it's not, it's Mathiasen, but I think it's Mathiasen, where the Supreme Court held that an individual who voluntarily came to the police station, and he actually drove himself, was informed he was not under arrest, and was without hindrance after like about a 30-minute interview. He was basically in an office, the door was open, everything was fine. They found that was not a custodial interview. More recently, in Yarborough versus Alvarado, which was 2004, the Supreme Court held that it was reasonable, although a closer call, to find an individual not in custody where he was brought to the police station by legal guardians. There was a 2-hour interview. He was never threatened, but he was not told that he was free to leave, offered breaks, and was released after the interview. So he wasn't actually told he could leave, but he was given breaks, and they ended up releasing him. They still found that to be a perfectly fine and not a custodial interview. Here, from what I can tell, there's no indication they said he could leave at any time. There is there's a bunch of cops watching. He's in sort of what I would assume is an interrogation room, maybe an office, but seems like it seems interrogation-esque. And the conduct of the officers very quickly becomes that of, you're going to get arrested soon, to say the least. And interestingly enough, there was a case I'm going to say only a few weeks ago, when this releases, only a few months ago. And there was from the Supreme Court of Kansas, which I'm very curious if they're going to apply for cert. And if so, we might be watching this case. It was a case called State v. McCullough. The Kansas Supreme Court reviewed a first-degree premeditated murder conviction arising from the shooting death of Ashley Jones and the defendant, Verlie McCullough III. She was his sort of on-again, off-again partner, and she was the mother of their child. And there was a mistrial in one case, and then they convicted him in the second case. The second jury convicted him, and there was an appeal that sort of centered on Fifth Amendment self-incrimination questions. Now, the big question there was, after he was Mirandized, did he unambiguously invoke his right to remain silent when he responded to a question, no, because I don't know where this is going? And the Supreme Court of Kansas held that was not an unambiguous statement to say you want to remain silent. So like he didn't actually say, I want to remain silent. He didn't invoke saying you wanted to see a lawyer. He responded to one of their questions saying basically, no, I don't want to talk because I don't know where this is going. They ultimately interviewed him later and got some information that they put in at trial. The reason I bring this case up is the Kansas Supreme Court, and I know we're not in Kansas, typically.
Not anymore.
The House did not go into Illinois, to my knowledge, but they talk about the different factors to consider whether something is considered custodial. And the factors are interrogation's time and place, duration, number of law enforcement officers present, conduct of the officer and the person questioned, presence or absence of any actual physical restraint, whether the person is being questioned as a suspect or a witness, whether the person questioned was escorted by officers to the interrogation location or arrived on their own power, and whether the interrogation's result was him being detained. I think of those 8 things, about 7 apply here.
Yeah.
So I am pretty confident, at least under that factor test, that this would be considered a custodial interview, and therefore he should have been Mirandized at some point. When that point was, unclear, but at some point he had to have been Mirandized. Again, I don't think it's big to the plot, and certainly when we do a sort of re-listen of this, I might pull this out as a sidebar, but I found it interesting because it was, because also I was actually curious because I didn't know really what the law was, because I do know that generally you have to unambiguously say, I want a lawyer, I want to remain silent. But I wasn't also sure when it became non-custodial versus custodial, which is a sort of more interesting question.
Yeah, a lot of interesting fine lines here.
Yeah.
So in the case, I'm curious about the presence or absence of actual physical restraint. Does being in the room with the door closed count as physical restraint? Because I assume it goes beyond just handcuffs.
Correct. And it goes beyond handcuffs. Sometimes other things are like a station guard outside of it, which would, again, imply you can't leave. I got to assume a closed door is one of them, too.
Yeah, a closed door in a room with a two-way mirror in a police station.
In fact, I'm going to force you guys to slowly go through the Lincoln Lawyer, despite you kicking and screaming. There is an episode where he tries to get a confession. I'm not even sure if it's a confession, but more of an interview kicked out because he is brought there voluntarily, but the door is shut and he's not allowed to open it. And Mickey Howard does a whole thing about, you were standing over him with your gun showing. Was that intimidation? And he's, no, I was just standing up. Was he allowed to leave? No, it's protocol that the door can't be opened because then we don't want people wandering around the police station. Those might be true, but regardless, it didn't feel like he was free to leave. So we are going to, whether you want to or not, we're going to get into that at some point.
I'm sure the legal discussion will be interesting.
It will be interesting. It won't be as bad as season 2, episodes 1 and 2. Let's put it that way. I don't have anything else. You got anything else, boys?
I have a bunch of random notes. Apparently, this was originally supposed to be a franchise. And the person that killed that was obviously Harrison Ford, who said, I will not fucking do another franchise.
A franchise involving him or a franchise involving
it was going to be several movies. It wasn't going to be immediately centered on him proving his innocence. It was going to be The Fugitive, like each individual. It was 120 episodes originally. They're going to split this out into 3 movies or something.
Oh, I see. So before they decided
Yep.
on one movie, I see.
Yep.
Because obviously it did become, this was followed
Marshals.
by U.S. Marshals.
Yep.
I don't think they made a third one, but we'll
No,
do U.S.
but-
Marshals at some point with Wesley Snipes and Tommy Lee Jones.
Yep. Really good score. I love when Harrison Ford says he has ears like an eagle. When they start wiretapping and breaking into people's places without warrants, who trained these people ice?
Yeah.
Oh, he warns he's going to, the Chicago PD are going to shoot you on sight. This is after a scene where he unloaded a full clip at him.
That's
like
true.
Yes.
Like he was, they were shooting people left and right in this movie. It's nothing from the very, the prison break to he's shooting. People are getting shot all over the place in this movie.
I was going to say the other inmate, actually, the one who he shoots. Yep. Is there any indication that he was he had a weapon or anything?
He had the other. Yeah, he had the other cop.
Oh, okay. So he actually would have been. He would have probably been justified in shooting him.
That was probably just. I don't want to go into.
It's completely reckless the way he did it.
I'm not. Yes, notwithstanding.
But I think ultimately justified. Yes.
He did actually save. If someone is holding another cop down, it's hard for me to say that it wasn't a justified shooting.
Fair enough.
I don't. Yeah. Oh, that is actually Chicago's St. Patty's Day parade. They walked with the Plumbers Union.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I wondered what.
And the beard, at some parts is real and at some parts is fake. They had to reshoot some scenes.
Because the guy who played Charles Nichols actually had brain cancer or something, right?
Yeah. The original actor was recast,
so they had to recast him and then reshoot some of those scenes.
Yeah.
After he had cut his beard.
Yeah.
This was roughly. Oh, this was 93. I guess Ferris Bueller was much earlier, but that's another Chicago.
Chicago's really had its moment.
Thing. Yeah.
It's been a minute since we've seen a Chicago-centric movie. Everyone's trying to think of one right now.
No, the Batman movies. The Nolan
Which
Batman.
do not take place in Chicago. That is Gotham City. Thank you very much.
Yeah, whatever.
The third one's in Pittsburgh. The third... look on a map where Gotham's supposed to be. Camden, New Jersey. I'm 100%
I'm not
serious.
worried about where the DC. The Dark Knight is shot in Chicago.
That means the third one shot in Pittsburgh.
That's fine.
Yeah. I have strong thoughts on this. All right, moving on.
We'll talk about it in The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Oh, I will note, this was 1993. HIPAA was passed in 1996. We see him accessing a ton of people's medical records without authorization. That in post 1996 would definitely have been a crime. I presume there were rules and stuff that applied pre-HIPAA.
It's a very good point.
But I did want to note, especially after our Scrubs episode, which actually may not air for some time.
Yeah.
Listener, you may, some months down the road, hear an episode of Scrubs where we talk about HIPAA.
These are being recorded out of order. Beard is currently real. I think the prior episode was a fake.
I think we'll do Scrubs. I think that's coming up next. We'll be.
Oh no, that is coming up. Yeah. Scratch that.
Yeah, scratch that. You've heard it, listener, if you've been listening.
Right.
You have.
Okay. Are you guys ready for reviews? You got anything else?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I like this movie. It's an excellent movie. It's one of the better. It fits into this category that doesn't really exist anymore of a mid-budget movie that went on to be successful, but it was just a very solid movie. I'll watch Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones do whatever they want for a long time. There's a bunch of solid bit actors throughout. The law,
especially in the early 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. The law is mostly wrong from what we see. I'm not offended by it, but it is. There's a lot of things that are of questionable legality. So it gets a thumbs up for quality and a thumbs down for the law for me.
I'm pretty much the same. Phenomenal movie. Hadn't watched it in a while. It used to be on my sort of I'm not even sure if it was one of those things that I actively watched once a year. It was just accidentally on once in a while. And now that I don't have cable, it's not accidentally on anymore. So I probably haven't watched it in 5+ years. Again, when I watch it for our podcast, things fall apart. I actually very quickly noted the whole U.S. Marshals thing to be wait, why are they there? Something the first time I watched it wouldn't even have thought twice about. You're just prisoner, U.S. Marshals. Yeah, of course. And then, of course, now that I pay attention to this crap, I'm state case, what the hell are we doing? And yeah, it has a similar opinion. So yeah, I think the law is almost entirely wrong, but that does not change the fact it's a fantastic movie, and I would keep watching it because that did not ruin it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. This is one of the few movies I own a digital copy of on Amazon, and while the cars and computers in the movie get old, have aged. The movie just doesn't get old for me. I enjoy it every time I watch it, and catch different things every time I watch it, which is nice. But yeah, the law, while it's engaging, this is not how any of this would play out. They're ignoring or getting wrong a ton of stuff, and yeah, I can't affirm it on the law, but certainly an entertaining movie. All right.
Okay.
Good talk. Great talk.
The Not So Grand Jury is sponsored by Morwa PLLC.
The opinions expressed in the Not So Grand Jury are those of the hosts themselves and not of their respective employers.
The theme music for the Not So Grand Jury is from Gustav Holst's Jupiter and is in the public domain.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, if you want to suggest future movies, or even if you want to offer corrections, you can email us at notsograndjury@gmail.com or message us on any of our social media accounts.
The Not So Grand Jury is copyright 2026, all rights reserved.